In high school, my English teachers liked to pose the question, "Who are you?" I remember the delight on their faces when someone would answer with their name. That's your name. It's not who you are. In fact, no answer seemed to be correct. That's what you do, not who you are. That's who you're related to, something you like. I used to get so irritated by it. Rhetorical questions aren't my favorite, especially loaded questions that are meant to make people feel stupid. So when I say this, please know that it is with absolute earnestness and the understanding that there's actually a right answer. Who are you? And the answer to that question, you'll find your voice. Welcome to CC Writes. My name is CC Lepke, and today we're turning up the volume on your inner voice. The major difference between beautiful prose and amateur stories is the author's ability to convey their voice. Your voice is your narrative representation of who you are and how you perceive the world. In writing, the author's voice is what influences the literary interest of the piece. It's the difference between relaying facts and actually telling a story. Without a well-developed voice, you might end up with something that reads more like a textbook. No matter how much good, interesting action takes place, readers simply have trouble connecting to the information. To avoid that pitfall, you really need to take the time to understand yourself, your perspective, and how best to convey those things in writing. So today, I'm going to help you do exactly that. If you struggle putting personality into your writing, then you're going to want to stick around. Just like the Little Mermaid, I am going to break through that shell and help you get your voice. To be fair, writing good prose takes more than just knowing your voice. If you need to brush up on how to write prose well, check out my series on how to write prose. It will give you the basics of how to write pretty. But this lesson will help you give your pretty words the personality they need to truly captivate your audience. Getting to your individual narrative voice is an extremely arduous journey of 3 steps. While it may not take a long list of actions to get there, each individual step is complex and nuanced. It takes a lot of self-analysis and vulnerability to unlock your voice, so be prepared to face some uncomfortable truths about yourself. The first step to finding your voice is to understand who you are as a person. Socrates said that to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. I can't guarantee your journey to discovering your narrative voice will bring you any kind of enlightenment, but at the very least, it will make your writing more interesting. When you understand who you are personally, you can move on to the next step, which is identifying the why behind your thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. This is the most difficult task because it relies on your willingness to not hide behind lies and try to justify yourself. You have to unflinchingly seek the truth. Once you understand the who and the why of yourself, the only thing left to do is actually figure out how to write it out. It takes time, persistence, and practice to be able to write with your personal voice consistently. Now that you know the steps, it's time to start walking. Let me show you the way. Know thyself. When I say that you need to better understand yourself, what I'm ultimately trying to get you to figure out is what you think, feel, and believe in the context of your personality. To know thyself, I recommend starting with a personality assessment. I don't mean finding out whether you're INFJ or what your love language is. To keep things objective and give you enough information to really understand who you are, I would actually recommend using a series of questions that I found on a dating site. Look, I know it sounds silly, but dating sites sometimes have questions in their compatibility assessment that requires deep thought about who you are as a person. To get started, I have a link in the description to 20 questions from a blog post on eHarmony, which is totally not sponsored, I just found it really helpful. It's a great place to start in asking yourself questions to get a firm grasp on your identity. You should also ask yourself questions about your personal history because where you came from is an important formative part of your individual identity. Write a short autobiography to identify the most formative memories you have. Don't hesitate to include the uncomfortable, the embarrassing, and the things that haunt you. Like all those times the server said, "Enjoy your meal," and you said, "You too." Another important tool you can use to better know thyself is a thought journal. Now, this won't work for everyone because not everyone has inner thoughts, but if you do hear your inner thoughts, then keep a journal of the things that you think about. Pay specific attention to moments when you're judging other people or situations. Pick out key moments when your emotions are at their highest. Critical and highly emotional thoughts in particular are especially helpful in assessing who you are and identifying your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Try to write your thoughts down with as much attention to detail as possible. The why of it all. Now that you've got plenty of data to work with regarding your thoughts and feelings, go through your answers to the dating site questions and your thought journal and do some deep analysis. You now understand exactly what you think, so now you're figuring out what it is that makes you think that way. What have you learned throughout your life that made you think in the way that you think? Who is the person that taught you that lesson? How was that lesson taught? Do you think it's a trustworthy lesson, and why? If you were presented with compelling evidence that proves your belief wrong, would you change? Write out your analysis of your thoughts and be as honest as possible. Recognize your personal bias, the good and the bad of your personality, no matter how much it might hurt. Writing it out. Once you understand your own mind, you have to try and put your mind onto paper. To do this, you have to be willing to reveal all of the things you learned about yourself through self-analysis. This takes practice. When you're telling a story, you're rarely telling it about yourself. So the only way to try to reveal your voice in your writing is to allow your personal thoughts to shine through without making it about you. That's easier said than done, right? Well, here is how to practice. Start by practicing stream of consciousness. Find something simple to describe inside your home and write about it as if you were creating a scene in your story. As you observe the object, let your mind wander and write down the things that you think about in relation to that object. Relay what you think about it and track your thoughts along memories or experiences that get brought up through looking at the object. Don't force yourself to come up with something to write. Just write whatever thoughts pop into your head about it. I was looking at a fake flower and found myself not noticing its resemblance to a carnation or the bright pop of color in the cloth petals. Instead, I thought about how the flower needed to be cleaned. I wondered how you go about cleaning fake flowers and then started imagining the lines of dust and hair as if they were the veins that go through the real flower petal. I noticed the frayed edges and musty smell and considered throwing it away, then felt guilty because it would seem like a waste. You never know where your thoughts might go, so just let them flow and take note of what you come up with. Practice stream of consciousness as much as possible, and over time you'll start to notice where your mind typically wanders as you experience the world. Once you have the hang of it, find a scene in your favorite story and try to retell it through your own perspective from memory. What things did you give the most attention to? How was it different from the original scene, and what similarities were there? Finally, in your practice of writing with your own voice, come up with a vignette to fully explore how you would use your voice in your own story. Keep the scene simple. It doesn't necessarily need a plot. Just write about a moment in time through your own perspective. If you follow the steps of learning more about yourself and how you think to help guide and amplify your voice in your stories, you'll start to see changes in the quality of your prose. When I first started writing, I told stories the way that I saw other people tell stories. The result was prose that was described by a critic as shaky. After years of practice and allowing my inner voice to rise to the surface, my prose is now described by critics as taut and unflinching. What I learned about myself through practice is that I'm extremely straightforward and dry. I prefer to describe things exactly as they are, especially things that are difficult to look at. I have a matter-of-fact and sardonic tone that brings out a haunting quality to my work. I managed to develop that voice despite not being anyone special. I'm not smarter than everyone else. I'm not a philosopher. I'm just an ordinary person. But deep inside of me, I have a very special perspective that makes the stories I tell seem fresh. I'm willing to bet that with a little soul searching and effort, you'll find the very same is true for you. Before we go, there's one more thing I want to say. It's NaNoWriMo! Yay! NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, an annual event in November where writers try to write 50,000 words in just 30 days. Just like last year, I'm going to be streaming my daily writing sprints every single day throughout November on Twitch. So come hang out, join in on the sprints, or just chat with me as I try to survive a grueling month-long writing marathon. Check out cc_writes on Twitch or click on the link in the description. I'll be live every day at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I look forward to seeing you there. If you liked learning about the 3 steps to find your voice and want to see more from me about how to write pretty, check out the video on top where I talk about how to write prose. Otherwise, click on the bottom video to see what YouTube recommends. As always, thank you so much for joining me today on CC Writes. I hope you enjoyed our time together, and I will see you later.